This is the
marquee.
marquee.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it's the English language.
Checks me talented.
Could you take this in? I don't know if Tara needs that. And also, when you get in there, could you open up that window?
Which one do you want, young man?
That's okay, we can do this.
You've got, no, you've got the end.
Actually, Heather, you open this window and I can just, if we open the window, I can...
Might blow the candles out, that's it.
Oh, right, okay, well no, in that case, don't do that then.
Don't do that. There's a window open here.
It's okay. It's fine, we'll just have it here.
You're just going to hold it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You're right,
Come on, get your candles. There's a few left. Just wait.
No, we don't. Yes,
Candles. Okay.
Mike's got mine. I've got the book.
Can I see yours?
Move round a little bit.
Hey,
Move round a bit.
over there.
Just where the camera.
Okay, folks, this is we're going to do, like we did yesterday, we're going to do a candle offering, and we're going to sing the song, the lamp offering song, which is a song written this year, and we sang it when we were in Bournemouth. We sang it all around Bournemouth in March this year. And as we're doing it, we could think of people we know who've died. Yes. And we're also, what we're going to do is we're going to sing the song, and we're going to put our candles in these containers this time. Clever new strategy. Put the lid on them, then carry the containers to the stupa when they're still alive. And the first candles that will go, we'll read out the names of the people who make offerings specifically for the purpose of dedicating the people. We'll start with the song. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to send correction, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all these ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to send corrections, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all these ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all these ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all these ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. Nancy Ray.
Okay, and I'm saying Sean McMillan.
And then Jessica Lucas. And Bentley Lucas. Shana Rinpoche. All beings. And Sheila Jones.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Right. Okay. So then, if we want to put one in for somebody, we can do that now.
Yes, and now we can come forward and
And I'll put one up for Elizabeth Fryer Kelsey.
safety.
Carry on singing.
Shining light of this candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all beings' ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all beings' ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of this candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all beings' ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. Shining light of the candle flame we offer to 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all beings' ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze. May the shining light of the candle flame we offer to the 10 directions, victors and their heirs. Remove the darkness of all beings' ignorance. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze.
Light of this candle flame we offer, direction, victims and theirs. Remove the darkness of all beings ignorant. May the shining light of knowledge and wisdom blaze.
May the shining light of the candle flame we offer. Beaches and never move the darkness, ignorant. Shining down knowledge and wisdom reign. This candle flame we offer.
Darkness of all beings ignorant. Shining light of knowledge and wisdom reign. Shining light of the candle flame we offer. And direction, victors and the darkness of all beings ignorant. Shining light of knowledge and wisdom reign. Darkness of buildings ignorant. Shining light of knowledge and wisdom. Offering that we make to all the Buddhas, the multiplied souls, offered on behalf of each and one of those beings who passed away, connecting them to the power of the Dharma, so that they have that connection, that will draw them towards enlightenment and protect them through all their future lifetimes. Dedicate this poem to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings realize complete and perfect awakening.
May the heart's awareness awaken in the unawakened. Where it has begun to stir, may it never fade. May it awaken fully. Have a look.
There's a guy in my house he's just doing his lineage.
What in the money?
He has to go to London once a month weekend. He has to do certain hours practice. I don't know.
I think it's probably a bit different.
Yeah, yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
No, we didn't. It's very compatible. What I do is very compatible.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to admit that was very starting.
Obviously, I didn't ask you what
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I might do something like that. Well, yeah, because I've had long-term depression, so I'd quite like to do
So I take any of it.
Right, okay. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I'm wondering if I could get away with doing something just to get the letters.
Do you feel this is something that we're not very clear about?
Certain aspects, maybe.
So
I think
will
without it,
try,
I'd have felt
when I get back,
a total lack of meaning to being separate with passion. It could be helping eventually, but
feedback from the
Whoever's come back.
Is anyone there?
7 people when I last went.
Oh, it's okay.
Put that down here a bit.
So we'll just do the refuge. We go for refuge to all the Buddhas, so that all sentient beings may realize Buddhahood. We go for refuge to all the Buddhas, so that all sentient beings may realize Buddhahood. We go for refuge to all the Buddhas, so that all sentient beings may realize Buddhahood. I'm just thinking we could also say we go for refuge in the Buddha, we go for refuge in the Dharma, and we go refuge in the Sangha. The particular formulation that we normally do is kind of a combination of both the refuge and the Bodhisattva vow together. Like, go for refuge to all the Buddhas, to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. So it's sort of like combines the two, with the emphasis on the Buddha, because all the Buddhas includes all those Buddhas of the future, which is us, and all beings who will eventually become Buddhas. So it's like it includes the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That's what is the Dharma? It's us. It's our true nature. What is the Sangha? Those who realize their true nature. So it's kind of all compressed. The 3 jewels are compressed. So it's good sometimes to just go for refuge to the Buddha, go refuge to the Dharma, go refuge to the Sangha. When you're doing 3 prostrations at the beginning, you can do that. Or you can go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha with body, go to refuge in body, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha with speech, go for refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Mind. Yeah, just testing you. So yes, it's good to remember that it's refuge in the three jewels. So apparently you had good discussions this morning and covered a lot of ground, it seems. And 2 questions came out of it, which I will now talk about. And then also a request for me to teach the song. So I think that's why there's only 2 questions, so that I'll get on with the song. So the one question is, could you say something about how to balance the complexity of a ritual, e.g. the feast offering, with trusting the essence or intention of the ritual? Trusting the essence or intention of the ritual. Some people get scared off by all this stuff and want to simplify it to something they can get behind and feel included in. So the reason why the feast offering has come up is because in the Mahayana Gana and the Srimala Gana, the commitment is to, on the full moon, to do a feast offering and to connect with your Gana partners. So the feast offering is a key part of the commitment. And the actual feast offering liturgy is quite long and involves quite a lot of, I'd have to say it implies a lot of the Buddhist cosmic view. And if you're not on board with that, it just sounds very complicated. And I said, when I give this commitment to people, I say, well, you can actually keep it very simple. You can keep it very simple. You can just do the feast with a cup of tea and a biscuit, and in a way do not much more than you would the meal offering that we do. At the same time, I did say and think to myself, I'll write something that is a feast offering that is simple like that, that doesn't bring in too many extraneous concepts and ideas and procedures, so that one can really enter into the spirit of it more than perhaps one does at when one does the meal offering. And I've promised that, and so that's reminded me that I should get on and do it. So I will do it, yes. It's certainly possible to do it. There's something about mandala principle. The feast offering is, the energy exchange of, this is the mandala that I am participating in, and making this offering is strengthening that connection, is acknowledging it and aligning with it, and repairing any damage that there has been to it, and enriching it. And then that eating is this amazing thing, really, isn't it? Because you're taking the world into you. You're actually trusting the world that much. You're taking it into yourself. You're completely becoming one with the world that you're connecting to. And of course, it's well known that, as human beings, eating together is a very important part of our makeup. I believe they've done experiments to find that actually eating in company is actually good for us, isn't it? I can't remember exact details, but so you can scientifically prove it, so it must be true. You can measure it, so it must be true. I'm being a bit naughty there. There are other things that are true, but that perhaps you can't measure. In fact, they might be measureless. Then what's science going to do with those? So that's why I've said that in that mischievous way, I thought. So, yes, it can be done. And I do understand why a lot of liturgy could be off-putting, because, again, it is a whole different way of looking at the whole cosmos, really, that perhaps you haven't taken on board. And if you come at it in a very complicated way, you're not even attracted by it. Whereas if you come at it more from your own experiential point of view, it starts to kind of make sense, and then you do find it attractive. Or you might never find it attractive, but nonetheless you understand the principles of it, which is the important thing. So I do want to try to do something to help. So I will. So how does the genuine transmission happen? Was that enough on that question for now? Yeah, okay for now. How does the genuine transmission happen? Can it without a single guru figure? And how do you see this happening after you die in this Sangha, presumably? So it's a really interesting question, and I've thought about it a lot. How does transmission happen? How does genuine transmission happen? The thing is, it's so simple. It's hard to say anything about it. It's like recognizing one's nature through recognizing it in another. So you recognize your own nature through seeing it in another, or communicating or touching it. It's more than just seeing it. It's more really perhaps even joining with it. But of course you are already joined, so becoming aware that one is completely joined and integral to the awareness of another, and that recognizing through that your own nature. So there has to be the opportunity for that to happen. And if you're if you like to say karmically ripe for this to happen, you simply, in the presence of another being, you recognize it completely, and it just, all the veils are removed, and you recognize your own nature, and you stay like that. So that would be the best case scenario. Hardly need to mention it, because if you're like that, you don't need any teaching anyway. You just, in the presence of the guru, it just happens. But for most people, it's a matter of degree, really. So you may come into the presence of sometimes even a sacred object. It doesn't even have to be a person, or a sacred place, and you feel something that awakens something in you. That's the beginning of that transmission starting to happen. And when you recognize that that's, there is a path, there is something to realize, then you cultivate that connection with that person. It needs to be a person, really, but it can happen just spontaneously to some extent, but it's not usually stable. It's usually just a flash of something that leaves an impression that stays with you, perhaps, but it's not enough. It's almost like an irritation more than anything. That what's that? I want more. What was that? So then, say we focus on the idea of a person. Does it have to be just one person? No. And if you were a Tibetan, for example, you're in a society where there are, certainly have been, and hopefully will continue to be, a lot of people who embody that lineage, who you can pick that up from them and feel confident somehow that they are of one lineage, and that is coming through each and every one of them, and therefore you trust the whole process. And maybe there's a main teacher, and then there's teachers under them, and you take teaching from all of them, with the sense that it's all coming from the same source, it's all coming from the same lineage, and that follows through in a coherent way to some extent. Although you start to notice that if you shop around, if you go from here to here to here, like if it's one group of teachers teaching, that's a fairly consistent style and method of teaching. But if you then combine it with other teachers who are teaching differently, you might find you're getting confused, or the teacher doesn't really know you, or the way you express it, that teacher doesn't allow that to be the way you express it, and therefore you start to have problems with taking the conversation deeper. So generally speaking, you want to keep to one, let's call it a school, or one Sangha, where the language is being honed to a particular way of using words, so that you can take the discussion deeper more quickly and more easily, because there's some kind of consistency in that. So you could say, and this is what's happening mainly in the West, I think, people are, the lamas might be traveling around, the chief lama would be traveling around different centres, and at each centre there'd be people who are then learning from the people who are there all the time. So they're kind of working together. So that does need to happen. But the person who's there all the time, of course, will get to know you, and you'll be able to ask them questions. So that will tend to be the strongest connection for you. And then as different lamas come by, you feel, oh, that's reinforcing the opportunity or the experience of the lineage coming through you. So I tend to say lineage rather than guru. Partly because if you talk about a guru in the West, it conjures up all sorts of maybe unrealistic expectations, or even a certain kind of yeah, I think that's the point, that it's unrealistic expectations, because it's not part of our culture to have gurus around, and then the Tibetan for guru is lama, to have lamas around. So I do have to, that's one of the things that I have to deal with, the fact that people do have unrealistic expectations, because they don't know what to expect from a lama, and you read books about it, and that certainly would lead you to expect certain things which I can't deliver. So what am I doing being a lama? That's another story. But but I feel that in this role, what I'm doing essentially is standing for the lineage. And I say that because to get you to realize it's a guru because it's a living connection with a person, that you're in their presence, but it's lineage in the sense that it's not to do with the particular personality of that person. It's something much deeper than that. It's a connection much deeper than that I'm able to offer you. And it amazes me sometimes at how that works. I just do my best, keep that connection very pure in my heart, and really have faith in it, and then see what happens. And then I find that students are picking up on things that actually I don't really think I really said that as well as they did, if you see what I mean. Like, yes, they're right, and it's true what they're saying. I don't think I said it so clearly, but it obviously came through, because now it's coming back to me. Oh, they did pick that up, and that was, almost in spite of me, but also because of mandala principle. We've created a mandala of the 5 certainties, and the power of the blessing of the lineage will be there, and you will be drawing it out of me. So, it's like a well. The water in the well isn't the well. I'm the well, or the tap. But, you can dip in and you can get the lineage through me. And actually, that's you're doing that. But I have a part to play in it. I have that commitment, and that's Samaya, and I'm sticking with it. And I'm trying to keep out of the way as much as possible. And you're allowing me to step out of the way. So you're naturally picking up on what's genuine and what is helpful. And if you've got any sense, you're ignoring what's really bizarre and not very helpful. Nonetheless, sometimes you might be thinking to yourself, I'm not sure, was that bizarre? Or was that a message? It's good to consider that. I've pondered things that happened with my own teachers for decades, and sometimes been quite surprised when suddenly it pops into my mind and I realise, oh, that was actually a message. I thought that was one of the bizarre things, but actually it was an important message. So it depends how quickly you learn, I think. So what's going to happen when I'm not here? Well, there's two things that might happen. This is how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, well, always for transmission you need to prepare the ground. So all the teachings I've given and all the things I've trained you in and all the students who've been trained to the point where they're teaching or being mentors and so on, they've picked up a lot. It's taken them many years to pick that up and to work with that. They're perfectly capable of helping others to get to that level. And they're also perfectly capable of doing what I'm doing, which is just being as true as they can to their own understanding, but with that strong sense of connection to the lineage and trusting that and trying to keep out of the way. Not, oh, I know all this, I'll tell you, but I know what you're suffering from. You need someone to help to explain it. I'll try my best, and to explain it as best. Explain it as you explain to yourself, really. You've thought about it a lot. This is your best shot. And then somehow trusting that the Dharma, the genuineness of the mandala, will mean that somehow the truth emerges in spite of you. And it's quite amazing how it does. So obviously that's going to work up to a point, but maybe for a lot of people that's already more than they're going to be able to handle in a lifetime. But there may be people who actually are ripe for a much deeper kind of transmission. And the way I'm looking at it is, well, they may be able to find that from a teacher that they meet. If they have a karmic connection with another teacher, they may find that that really works for them. And they may find that the teacher that they're working with or they go to doesn't have a Sangha of their own, or if they do have a Sangha of their own, they don't have a Western Sangha of their own, or even if they do, they may feel that this particular Sangha is worth preserving and continuing, and want to help this Sangha to continue. So they might easily say to the student, yes, come to me for your own transmission and teaching, but stay in the Awakened Heart Sangha to help that Sangha. And so I'm hoping that that will happen. That maybe it doesn't have to be either or. It can be and both. And then at some point, I hope there will be people who are really, as fully realized as possible emerging from this particular Sangha. And then it will become obvious, I think, oh, everybody recognizes that, and that person can really take the Sangha, sort of that much further than it might otherwise. And that is how the lineages have worked in Tibet. There's been institutions set up, monasteries set up, or groups of disciples practicing together. It might be a whole village that's all practicing together. And sometimes it's pretty low-key, and they go off and get teachings from here and there, and lamas come by, and they're working with the lineage as a whole. And then there may be some teacher, maybe it's a yogin in a cave somewhere, or somebody in the back room who's been meditating for the last 30, 40 years, who suddenly emerges as somebody everyone has faith in, and is able to really reinvigorate or what's what I'm looking for? Reignite, yes, energize the whole mandala in a fantastic way, and it goes forward from there, you know, better than it's ever been before. That's also possible. So I have that kind of sense of what we're creating is a vehicle that will make that possible. The vehicle consisting of the various things I listed in the mission this morning. You know, there's stupa and holy place and body of teachings and teachers and mentors and structure to the Sangha. It creates a vehicle that it's only very easy for the transmission to be carried in it, or to, if you like, be injected into it. So that's how I'm looking at it. I hope that deals with that question. It's an important question. Okay. Then one other observation about congruence of what we stand for. This whole thing of having a core of students who stand for the values of, and the vision of the Sangha, the whole thing hangs on whether they do or not, whether it's congruent. And even if we don't always live up to our values and our vision, there's something in being able to acknowledge that, isn't there? It's when we're denying it, when we're pretending that we are, when we're not, that the thing starts to go wrong, really wrong. But when we recognize that is our vision, and those are the values we stand for, and actually we're missing the point, and we have missed the point, and we need to kind of get our act together. Once we've acknowledged that and are working on that, well, that's the best we can hope for, isn't it? You know, we just keep working on it. You know, if we could do it straight away, then we'd be there, wouldn't we? We'd be there in this sort of the height of my vision, as it were, or all our vision. But in the meantime, what's our next best option is to just keep working at it, as we do with our own practice. You know, we have this ideal of Buddhism, of, you know, to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. We're not there, but we don't lose that as our vision. So that shared vision is the thing that's going to hold it together, rather than the exact degree to which we are actually realizing it and embodying it in terms of really being able to carry it through. But, you know, if we don't lose sight of that's where we're going, that's what we're trying to do, and accepting, you know, when we see we're not, being able to really face that. Which, you know, isn't always easy, is it? We want to say, well, we are really. Maybe, but can we really, are we really being honest about it? I think that's the key point there, I think. Okay. So I was very pleased to hear that you'd all engaged in talking about the Sangha and about the vision and mission and the aim, and there was interest in, well, you know, how do I get involved? I think great. And I think one of the things that I didn't say much about this morning, but I snuck it in there because I was trying to get in a lot, was the when you're not at the stage where you're ready to join the Mahayana Gana, but you are at the stage where you want to start committing yourself, what's there for you then? And I'm thinking, that's it, isn't it? So that's where you need to find some way of, in a way, taking on board what the Mahayana Gana is doing and doing it at the level at which you're at, so that there's some kind of way you're preparing to move into the Mahayana Gana. And the more ways we can find, you can find, of linking together to do that, and the more initiatives you can take, of course, that means there's more, you know, human resources involved in making that happen. So yes, make it happen. You'll have my full encouragement. All of us, we will encourage you very much. So, and do what we can to help to make that happen, because I think that's vital. Because if new people are going to be coming in and committing themselves, that's where they're going to be for a while. So in a way, that's that's going to be the next most important thing once the Mahayana Gana is more established. The next most important area will be those DHB students who need help with connecting up and getting some sense of what the values of this Sangha are. So yes, you're preempting the process when you ask, you know, like, what about us now? I think, yeah, that is the big question, and this is what we're working towards, to be able to do more in that area. So great. So when I was thinking yesterday about what to talk about today, I wanted to talk about something inspiring. And yes, I was thinking about Rinpoche. And then this book was on my desk, and it was a very quiet evening. It was very nice, you know, after such a busy day. And I thought, I've had this book since we were given it in Nepal, and I don't even know what's in it. So I started looking at it, and notice starts in Tibetan, and it's a song of the 6 questions. And I've always, when we've sung it, and this was one of the first ones that Rinpoche started getting us to sing, and we were all quite young then, so it was quite trendy, you know, we were all young and sort of singing at the top of our voices, and we were all young. And I'd been used to singing these kind of songs in these haunting melodies, Tibetan melodies, and now it was being belted out in these sort of popular song tunes, which I assume were popular song tunes, and I sort of shuddered a bit. Nonetheless, Rinpoche was quite right. They became very popular among his students, at least, and have been a great binding force, so that by singing these songs over and over, and he made us sing them over and over and over and over and over, and hours on end, the same songs again. So that's quite a challenge, you know, trying to find something meaningful in that, other than thinking, well, I'm watching my impatience and, you know, like trying to keep my faith. At least I'm still here, I haven't walked out kind of feeling, which, you know, counts for something. I think it counts for something. So anyway, in the end, I've just sort of become quite fond of them because they make me feel very connected with Rinpoche and with his Sangha. So I hope it will have a similar effect here. But I have got it in Tibetan, so I can go through it. But let's sing it first. You got the songbooks?
There might be a different translation you've got there from the one we use.
I doubt
I
it.
don't think so.
No.
Need to get
Yeah.
Mine has even more projections.
And dust mites.
Yeah, no, it's the same one. I haven't ever translated it. It's Jim's, I think. Yeah, one of his first ones. So I'll read it to you while you're getting the books. Oh, can you sing it?
No.
Oh, okay, let's wait then. And you might not realise straight away that it's connected to death, so I'm going to have to explain why.
Just in connection with the feast
Yeah.
ceremony, you did some time ago, I can't remember when it was, but you gave pointers on how to put together a shortened
Right.
feast ceremony.
Okay.
If that's around somewhere, you might use that.
Okay.
I
mean, I do.
Yes. So Yesh is saying that some time ago I wrote something about how you could put together for yourself a feast offering that was a simpler version. You know, what you could leave out and what you could put in, and she even has it somewhere. So that might help me with my task of creating maybe one that is an option for everybody to do if they want to.
I do use a shortened version myself.
And Yeshi uses a shortened version herself.
Does it work?
But people surprise themselves once they have a shortened version. They suddenly realise they want to do the long version, because that's how perverse our minds are. When you realise you don't have to do it, you find you want to do it. I'm just the same. No.
Page E61.
Okay, so can you lead, Tara?
I can try.
Mind has even more. Mind has even more projections than dust motes in the sun. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who sees the appearance of things laid bare in the very bed where it lies? The basic nature of things is not produced by causes or condition. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who gets to the very bottom of this, cuts down to its very root? Mind's impulse to sudden thought cannot be stopped by hundreds with spears. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who sees that attachment can dissolve, be freed in and of itself? The movement of thinking mind cannot be locked in an iron box. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or yogini, who sees that discursive mind itself is empty in itself? The sensory enjoyments, even wisdom deities do not shun. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who is able to see through the transparency of the process of consciousness? What about the appearance of the 6 kinds of objects that go with the consciousnesses? Not even the hands of victorious ones can put a stop to that. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who can see there is no object there behind the appearances? So, can anybody see the connection there with death?
Basic nature of things is not produced by cause or condition.
Yeah, the basic nature of things is not produced by causes and conditions. That's one. That's like the non-conditioned, which is what we're relying on. So to recognize that, sometimes that's called like recognizing the clear light nature. You know, in the moment of death, the clear light nature shines forth, and recognizing that is not caused by causes and conditions. It is the unborn. That's the that bardo, what is it called? The Chunyi bardo, the bardo of the Dhammatar. So yeah, that's a really important point.
Attachment can dissolve.
Yeah, attachment can dissolve by in and by itself. So it's sort of like the attachment can be there, but it doesn't bother you, which sounds like a bit funny, because you think, well, if it's there, you're caught by it, which is kind of true. But if you've been really practicing, meditation, the formless meditation, you start to realize that when you notice attachment, the less you make a big deal of it, actually it doesn't catch you in the same way. It's like just a feeling of, oh, I want to attach, and then you don't completely, and somehow that leads again to the unborn, to the, the formless. We describe it as formless it's the Dharmakaya really we're talking about. So you actually recognize that the attachment itself isn't something separate. It's not got any power in itself, except when you get caught in it. It's, in a way, it's an expression of the Dharmakaya itself. I mean, it's a very deep realization, but to have that kind of confidence when you die, it's having the confidence, as I was saying this morning, just confidence in now, your experience right now. If you just let what's there be there and just remain in that confidence, whatever's coming and going will just kind of dissolve. It's in a way just an expression. It's just like waves on the surface of something. It's kind of enhancing it rather than damaging it. You don't have to stop anything. It's nothing to give up. We say it every morning, don't we? There's nothing to give up. Or, you know, the samskaras are emptiness. Emptiness is the samskaras in the Heart Sutra. It's the same old message. So, and that's completely relevant to when we die, that if we have that underlying confidence that that's true, whatever appears, we don't get thrown by it. You're used to it. It's appearing all the time in your life, and you don't let that throw you. Then when you face death, you won't let what appears then throw you. So, any other connections you can see immediately?
So the mind in a metal box.
Yeah.
The metal box being our.
All right. The movement of the thinking mind cannot be locked in an iron box, yeah, or even in a physical body for that matter. Yeah, one could interpret it that way. Yeah, or even in a coffin.
Yes.
Yeah. It will continue to you know, play and produce things. It's not going to stop.
What about the transparency of the process of consciousness? Beyond.
Yes. So that rather than please don't. It's a horsefly.
Oh yes.
Yeah. The process of taking rebirth again. Yes. Latching onto something again. Yeah. I'm going to have to let it stay until it's finished. Otherwise, it'll just take another bit. Or let's have a good few nips. Okay, so I think you've got the general idea. So I'll just go through it from the Tibetan, just for your interest. So mind here is actually chitta. So it's more than simply just the thinking mind. It's like the nature of our awareness itself, the nature of our heart mind, if you like, is that it is producing these experiences, you could say. You know, these projections, it could just easily be translated as these experiences. And these experiences just completely pervade it. Like when you have sunlight and you can see all the dust in the sunlight. It's like that. It's just completely pervaded with specks of dust, which is an unusual image. I've not seen that anywhere else. So then the question is, and it's a Milarepa song, the question is, here in the present company, do we have a yogin who a jaw, Naljaw, a yogin who's a master or lord yogin, such a yogin with such accomplishment that they know how to let whatever the experiences arise simply, yes, rangmal to Shepa, just let them be completely natural and not in any way disturbed by them. Is there somebody here who can practice like that? Whatever experience arises, it doesn't disturb them. It's equalness to whatever arises. Is there anyone here like this? Hands up. How many? So he's asking that, I think, because I need to find the actual context of this song, which I don't know. It's usually, the song is written in the context of some story, but I'm not quite sure which one it is. So the next one is, the true nature of things. Their neluk, their true way of being, which is referred to as the base. You might have heard of the base, path and fruit. Yeah. So there's got she here, the base. The base of our practice, the fundamental work, what we're working with is the true nature of our being, and with all the experiences that are manifesting out of that. So this fundamental basis from which it's all emerging is not, as Tara pointed out, is not dependently arising. It's actually, it's not something that arises, birth. It's beyond birth and death, you'd have to say. It's not a conditioned thing. So this is the ultimate nature, which you would have to say, if you're talking about the Paticca of the 12 links, this would be the Vija at the beginning of the chain. So the Vija itself is not conditioned. But when there's Avijja, then everything after that is conditioned by the Avijja. But when the Avijja is not there, the non-Vija, then ignorance, or whatever you want to call it, then you have it Vija, and that is not dependently arisen. It's a very important point, a very deep and significant point, and is what makes sense of the 12 links, because if they were only dependent on each other, well, where would there ever be any end to it? There would only ever be dependent, one depending on the other forever. So what can break the chain is the fact that Vija is not dependent. So, is there a yogin here? Is there a Lord yogin here who is completely, has complete conviction about that, about this one important point, Nyachik Senichepa? Is there? It's a very important expression in Mahamudra, and it's about the transmission, that there's one thing that we need to be able to recognize. It's this. And do we recognize it? If we recognize it, do we have real conviction in it? Do we give our full allegiance to it? Or do we waver? Do we sometimes have a little flash of it and then forget? Yes. It's where we are for a long, long time as practitioners. A little flash of it where we recognize it, but we can't stay there, and because we haven't given our full allegiance to it at a very, we're too distracted, too many other things going on, and so we keep coming back to it, come back to it more and more, and you realize, wow, that's amazing. I hardly ever came back to it, and now I come back to it more and more, but actually most of the time I haven't come back to it. That tells me there's a long way to go before that really stabilizes. And that would be called complete conviction, because you could trust that through thick or thin, and you would not miss the clear light nature when you died. You wouldn't miss it because you're looking for it, at it, with it all the time. So when you die, it's not much difference, because that you have that complete conviction. So that is there a yogin like that here, or yogini? Rinpoche added the yogini because there was some question about it being a bit sexist. So he said Milarepa meant both, so we will sing both. So then, the next one is, yes, the Tolchechi Shepadi. So there's always a sense that, well, if you keep your mind on that one thing, then your mind would be completely still, nothing would be happening. So the next verses are saying, no, nobody could stop that mind that is producing something all the time. Nothing can stop it. You know, it's no use thinking, you know, when I'm a good practitioner, I will stop it all. No, nothing, not even Buddhas, nobody can stop it. Whatever you try to do, you could never stop it, because its nature is to keep producing things, producing spontaneously, producing mandalas, you could say. They're always going to be there. So, what is it? Tashepadi. Yeah. So even 1,000 spears, no, 100 spears, won't stop them. You know, so you could actually have as many spears as there were things appearing, and you could pierce every single one of them, but that wouldn't stop them. Not at all, not in the slightest. So there you are. You might as well give up. Attack, here it comes, attack. Here comes attack. It's not going to work. You'll just be busy forever. So it's another approach, not to attack them head on. So is there a yogin here who knows how, is there a Lord yogin here who knows how or knows that the attachment itself, they can actually let it, I suppose we'd have to say, liberate itself. Even as the attachment arises, it liberates itself. So, okay, something comes up in your mind, there's an immediate attachment to it, and there's an immediate release of that attachment through seeing what it is. So it's like immediate recognition. So, okay, you have this one point where you're resting in that nature, you have complete conviction in that nature, and then as things come up, they don't disturb it at all. They come up with the same vividness as before, but they don't disturb it at all. Just spontaneously arise, spontaneously, just as they are. They're not a problem. And it's amazing, because you can't say they arise, really. The more you look into your mind, what is all this that's coming up? You never see it, because by the time you've taken it as an object, it's gone, hasn't it? So you're never really quite sure what you're experiencing. So it's a matter of making your peace with that, really. And in no way is there any need to adjust it in any way, ultimately. That's why at the end of our session, when we've been trying to meditate for an hour or however long, we say, you know, there's nothing to remove. There's nothing to add. It's all right already. Just to remind us, you know, because probably we've been working away at something or other, busily. So I put that there to remind us. Well, yes, good. You know, it's important to try, but in fact, there isn't anything to do. It's going to continue like that, but you're going to make your peace with it in the end. So is there a yogin like that? A Lord yogin like that, who can actually recognize the attachment as it arises, and for it not to be a problem. And by attachment here, in order to kind of oppose something, you know, like you could have attachment and aversion. In order to be averse to something, you have to already to have attached to it, don't you? You have to already given it some reality in order to be averse to it. So it does cover aversion as well. And even that kind of taking it for real, even though you're not particularly averse to it or particularly attached to it, they're just taking it for real. In a way, you're already confused. So that term attachment, Shenpen here, refers to that whole process from the subtlest level. That it's possible for that to be going on, and yet you're not disturbed by it. It's interesting, isn't it? It's a subtle difference between the feeling of something, recognizing the feeling, and resting in the true nature, non-conditioned nature, and the feeling arising and getting sucked into it, and then not being able to get out again. And there's a little moment, a very subtle choice there, where we could actually allow ourselves to just be with the feeling. And it almost feels like death, because you're getting sucked into a mandala, which is promising you some sort of sense of aliveness, and then you're just staying with that, being drawn into it, and maybe a bit uncomfortable feeling but you choose not to get involved, and then actually the whole thing, you're again resting in that true nature without having been disturbed by that feeling. So it's very, very subtle, very deep. Okay, the next one is what is it? This is the iron box one. Yeah. So even the slight movement of the mind. So it's been describing experiences arising in the mind, and it's describing sudden experiences in the mind. But even the slightest kind of movement in the mind, again, there's that uneasiness of, well, okay, I have that conviction in the nature of mind, and I can rest in that quite well. But there's still this movement that doesn't seem, like it's almost like it's not even as much as an experience. Even it's just almost like just a something, and you can't even tell what it is. It's kind of just there. You suspect even almost there's a movement that's kind of maybe almost like a little doubt somewhere. And actually, if you think, oh, well, when I have complete conviction, I won't have any of these little doubts anymore. I'll try and get rid of these doubts. I'll try and, kind of stop them. Actually, it's almost like trying to put them in a box, trying to isolate them, try to, where are they? There they are, got them, fix them somehow, and now get rid of them. And actually, that's not going to work. You're never going to get them into any kind of fixed form. So, is there a yogin here who can, who can recognize, is there a Lord yogin here who can recognize that, I suppose you'd have to say, everything that's seeming to be a movement a strange way, when you're trying to fix that as something, it's not actually a movement. It's actually, because a movement, the way we think of a movement, is that there's one thing, fixed thing, that moves from here to here. But if you really, I mean, even just meditating on impermanence, if you go enough detail, nothing is there even for a moment. So the movement isn't a fixed thing going from here to here. Nonetheless, you can't say there's no movement, because our whole idea of movement, first we have some experience of movement, and then we fix this idea, oh, it's something moving along. But before we thought there's something moving along, we knew something. It's kind of it's a very subtle point, but very, very interesting. So is there a yogin or yogin here who recognizes this, the rangtong, the self-emptiness of that movement? Just by, you can say almost like the movement of the mind itself, which isn't really a movement. Is there anyone here who can recognize that? It's just self-empty. Kind of, it's, I suppose you'd have to say it's an illusion of some kind. It's like just an illusion of movement. But at the same time, yeah, there's something very mysterious about that. So is there a yogin or yogin who can recognize that? So then it's very interesting. He moves, it really takes a big leap now into something surprising, I think. Enjoying the sense pleasures. So this is the feast offering, isn't it? You're enjoying the sense pleasures. What's so important about enjoying the sense pleasures? The jnana deities don't give up the sense pleasures. That's quite a statement, isn't it? What are jnana deities for a start? I didn't know we'd signed up for deities. You know, signed up for openness, clarity, sensitivity, and maybe even the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but deities. And jnana. What's that? Jnana deities. Yeah. Bit of a shock, really, isn't it? Okay. That sounds like a whole new religion. Don't know if I signed up for this religion. Gods? Gods? Oh yeah, these are wisdom gods. What? I thought we didn't have gods in Buddhism. Isn't that the whole point? You know, the Buddha, you know, you take refuge in the Buddha, you don't take refuge in gods. And then suddenly, you know, gods. What's going on? No wonder people get confused. Where did they come in? Very interesting. Gods is the right word. You know, we use gods in quite a general way sometimes, don't we? You know, take somebody as your god, take money as your god. You know, we say that, don't we? You know, like, this is what you worship, this is what you fixate on, this is what you follow. So it can take different forms and it can be used almost metaphorically. And often they use in Tibetan, they do the same kind of thing, and they might call the Buddha a god in that sense. So they would call this a hlakang, a room where the gods are. You know, it's like, maybe say it's a sacred place with sacred. But the idea is that the god here, I mean, they would call the Buddha a god, actually. You know, Tlayin, it's a god, in the sense that we are, it's almost like a refuge. We're making that the focus of our the process of going for refuge. So these are, if you like, they're emanations from the Buddha. They're jnana emanations that, I mean, why should there be any limit to what form an enlightened being could take on? There is no limit. So an enlightened being could appear in the world as a human being, but you know, why would they be restricted to being a human being? They could be any kind of being. So they could appear as a being that's the gods could see. You know, the gods could see a god. So these there's human forms, and then there's forms that perhaps are more. You'd have to have a special kind of karma to be born to see them, or to maybe you have a certain level of realization in order to see them. And so that word God starts to become a more obvious term to use. But it isn't anything other than the Buddha radiating and emanating into the realms of beings to show them the way to enlightenment. So it does sort of imply that you've taken on board the Buddhist cosmology to some extent, that is actually a possibility. And that, of course, the gods, karmically, the gods, ordinary worldly gods, they have tremendously more refined senses and capacity to enjoy sense pleasures than we do. So like, if you think of a person who has the greatest capacity to enjoy the sense pleasures, a real aesthetic sense and real, you know, really clear, sharp faculties, then they're getting closer to the gods' realms, but the gods are even more so, you know, and they're not so, they don't die so quickly and suddenly, you know, so they're kind of, it seems to go on for much longer, and it's kind of what we would really like, really, you know, is sort of more of everything that's good and lasting longer, and yeah, basically. And then we think, oh no, we're Buddhists, so we're not attached to anything, so of course we don't want that. And then you see somebody with a lot more than you have, and you think, well, I don't know, maybe I do. Oh no, I don't know, I'm a good Buddhist, I'm not at all attached, you know, I'm not a worldly person. So it sort of begins to feel like a virtue to not even enjoy the senses. Because, oh, you know, if I enjoy it, I'll get attached to it, and then I'll be a worldly person. So I'm not even going to look. Ooh. Ooh. But this is actually not necessary, ultimately. Our senses are going to get sharper and sharper and sharper. They're going to go over the top sharp, you know, to the most intense pleasure possible. So it's not a matter of rejecting the sense pleasures, although we might do that temporarily to put ourselves out of temptation's way and to give ourselves a bit of space to practice in, so we're not distracted. But there's no virtue in not enjoying the sense pleasures. There's actually no virtue in it at all. So enjoy your food, enjoy your health, enjoy the sense pleasures. It's not a problem, but it is a problem if you get attached. So you have to kind of play that by ear, you know. I might get attached a bit, but okay, I can take the disappointment when it falls apart, so okay, you know, go with it. But here it's saying that you've reached the point where you're recognizing that nothing's a problem, but now you're going further. Not only is it not a problem, it's delightful. Whatever's appearing. It's actually delightful, whatever appears. So your equalness, you know, you're being able to be with whatever arises without it disturbing you, turns into whatever arises is just really, it's really a pleasure. It's really a pleasure. Everything, even what seems negative, is a pleasure. Which is kind of, wow, sounds all right, doesn't it? So is there a yogin or yogin here who knows how to, the six consciousnesses to let them be completely hlukpa. It implies relaxed, in the sense that you're completely at ease with them. And so there's that spontaneous ease with whatever arises, which is, you could say, well, I'm really enjoying for the first time, perhaps. And we tend to not enjoy, not just because we become attached and we become worried that we're going to lose things again, but we don't enjoy because we just are not awake. We're not actually there. We're a moment behind or a moment in front, or we're not really right on the spot. So this Shlukpa who know how to be totally relaxed and on the spot, and the sense pleasures, all the senses, including the mind sense, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Have I missed any? 6 senses. Yeah, touching, feeling, So this tremendously heightened awareness, even the gods. Yes. The gods, the jnana deities, the ones that are emanating from the Dharmakaya itself. They completely enjoy the senses. Is there anyone here who can appreciate the senses in that way? Any great yogin here? Any Lord yogin here who can enjoy them? If so, hands up. We will follow. So it's a very happy song. But again, this comes up in the bardos, doesn't it? In the bardos, the jnana deities start to appear in their vividness. It's almost like an onslaught on the senses. Very loud sounds, very bright lights, very strong feelings. And I suppose there must be smells and tastes and all the rest of it. And it's like so overwhelming that we would try to run away from it. We wouldn't want to hide. We want to turn it down. It's too much. It's too much. So the yogin for whom it isn't too much, because it's just like pure delight, that great explosion of the what the senses truly are in essence, they would be one with it, and it would just be another moment of awareness. That's how they are anyway. So just more of the same. It'd be incredible, wouldn't it? So that's something to aspire to. Dr. Klukpa, Shepa, Jovanajo, Tijada. And then the last one is, so that's the consciousnesses, each for the ear, eye, nose, tongue, body, mind. And now it's the objects of the consciousnesses. So, yes, so perhaps we have this idea that if we were to realize liberation and we were to realize Buddhahood, we would become one with the Dharmakaya and everything would disappear. Yeah? So maybe there would be these wonderful experiences of light and sound and so on, but eventually it would all disappear. And then this one is saying, even the Buddhas don't try and stop the objects of the senses. So you think, but surely they have this non-dual awareness. There are no objects. It's a very interesting point, isn't it? When we say non-dual awareness where there's no object that's separate from the mind that's seeing it, it's almost like they would disappear. And what it's saying is, well, not exactly. They don't exactly disappear. In fact, you're experiencing it's not quite the objects, but let's say the objects of the senses, you're experiencing them as they really are, and they have a power from their own side. So when we become aware of something, even as jnana awareness, okay, it's non-dual in a sense that it's not separate, But there is a side to it that is, if you like, the awareness focusing on some determined way, sort of, you could say almost foreground. There's something coming into the foreground that is being aware of it, even though it's not separate from the awareness, and then that goes into the background, and in a sense that coming into the foreground is almost like an object coming from somewhere else, although it isn't somewhere else. It's kind of, so there still would be the possibility of knowledge, because if in fact there was no movement between the knowing aspect and the known aspect, there would be no knowledge, would there? There wouldn't be anything that you could know. So there is still some kind of play there between, without becoming confused and thinking it's separate, there is some kind of movement and separateness that isn't really in the sense of the way we would think of separate. It's kind of like, well, you'd have to experience it to know it, and in fact you do experience it to know it. But then we fixate on our own, you know, we fix on it in a way that then we don't know it again. We sort of try to know it with this mind that's trying to fix things, and then we don't know it again. But we did know it, otherwise we wouldn't try to fix on it, would we? We knew it, and then we tried to make a concept out of it. If we didn't know it already, how could we make a concept of it? So that's a very strange, very subtle area. But if we're thinking it all disappears, here Milarepa is saying the objects of the six senses, the appearance of objects of the six senses, the Buddhas, not even the Buddhas try to stop that, because they're not a problem actually. The Buddha works with that, and it is through those, through that, almost that, whatever that is ultimately, it's through working with that the Buddha can appear in the world and help beings. So you're not even trying to get rid of the objects of the senses. So appreciating them and recognizing them for what they are, going beyond concepts of what they are, and then at the same time being aware of their distinctness. It's one of the jnanas, isn't it? The jnana of recognizing distinctions. It's actually not, yeah, it is a kind of jnana, and we already have it. We can already recognize distinctions, but we're too heavy-handed with it. So is there a yogin or yogini here? And of course this would relate to taking rebirth, wouldn't it? So the objects of the senses, the five skandhas, could appear, and an enlightened awareness could become sort of involved with the whole five skandhas structure, but without that actually becoming a problem. So then that's how you could take rebirth in a pure land, or you could take rebirth in this world again for the sake of other beings. So this is again this whole death process. Is there a Lord Yogin here who has that knowledge of, yeah, this playing with words here, because it says, for whom what's appearing, like, you know, as you know, if you were taking birth in this world or in a pure realm, things are appearing, but they're not being fixed as an object. So the line, I think the last line is, who can see there is no object there behind the appearances. So you're seeing the appearances, but without trying to fix it as an object. So it's all very subtle. It's very, very deep, and it does relate, as we were already beginning to intuit. It relates to that how we live now, and how living now relates directly to the whole process of going through the bardos, through the death process, and then the rebirth process. So it's pretty condensed, isn't it? So shall we sing it? Has even more projections than dust motes in the sun. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who sees the appearance of things laid bare in the very bed where it lies? The basic nature of things is not produced by cause or condition. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who gets to the very bottom of this, cuts down to its very root? Mind's impulse to sudden thought cannot be stopped by hundreds with spears. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who sees that attachment can dissolve, be freed in and of itself? The movement of thinking mind cannot be locked in an iron box. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or yogini, who sees that discursive mind itself is empty in itself? The sensory enjoyments, even wisdom, deities do not shun. Is there an accomplished yogin here, or a yogini, who's able to see through the transparency of the process of consciousness? What about the appearance of the 6 kinds of objects that go with the consciousnesses? Not even the hands of victorious ones can put a stop to that. Is there an accomplished yogin here, a yogini, who can see there is no object there behind the appearances? Good day. So are there any questions?
Could you just say a bit more about the Vijaya, the 12 links of the candle original?
Right.
I haven't heard that before about the Vijaya at the beginning.
Right.
Could you repeat the question?
So the question is that when I mentioned about the 12 links of Paticca Samutpada, it usually begins with avidya. And Yesh is saying, I've never heard it beginning with Vijaya. And that's right, it's never explained as beginning with Vijaya. But it is explained how the when the various conditioned elements are not there, then the avidya is no longer avidya, it's Vijaya. So it's like you get the way each of those stages are conditioned by the stage before, and they're not there if the next one isn't there. But in the same way, if something's missing, like if the attachment is missing, then the feeling is, I'm not very good at explaining this, but I have to give it a bit more thought. But the feeling is then not conditioned by that clinging, and therefore the next thing isn't conditioned by that, and eventually you get the avidya hasn't got anything to attach to, and so you're left with the Vijaya. But I need to practice explaining this because I never have done before, and I need to think about it more.
And we're in the process of working.
Yes, we're having a study group at the moment on the 12 Paticca Samutpada, so I've started thinking about it because especially Nyuma Rinpoche was saying, you know, how Paticca Samutpada is the central teaching of Buddhism, and that people forget this. And I thought, it's interesting he should say that, because the next sentence he said, the thing that liberates us from samsara is recognizing the true nature of mind, vijja. So I thought, now that's familiar. You know, that's how I've been taught. The stress has always been on vijja, and how to recognize vijja, and how to rest in vijja, and how to let go of attachment so vijja can reveal itself. But I can't remember having had hardly any teaching on Paticca Samuppada, so it can't be as central as all that, unless it's coded somehow. The only occasion I ever heard it mentioned, as you know, there's 12 links of Paticca Samuppada, was in the Dual Ornament of Liberation as the remedy for the remedy for desire attachment is disgustingness of the body. The remedy for hatred is love, and the remedy for stupidity is meditate on these 12 links. And yet, when I started to look into it, I found there's very little described about how you do actually meditate on these 12 links. It's in the sutras themselves. There are commentaries about it, but they're not explained in the sutras. So I've become very interested in this whole area, and I shall let you know as I start to unravel this particular mystery, because I think Paticca Samuppada seems to be refer to these 12 linked conditions that if you break them, they undoes itself, and then you just get the vijja revealed. But it's used also as a kind of gloss for any kind of conditionality. And I think that's a bit confusing, because I don't think conditionality as such is the central teaching of Buddhism, because actually anyone could have come up with that. You don't need to be enlightened to notice that everything's conditioned. So, yeah, it's true. But what Buddhism is teaching, what the Buddha was teaching, is that there is something, there is vijja, and that can be realized, and there is therefore liberation from conditionality. But I'm not sure why they use the same, there's a sort of implication that that is the same thing as Paticca Samuppada, so I'm going to have to think about that more carefully. It's sometimes also what is conditioned is sometimes it's translated as relative, which it's not quite the same, but in some aspects it's the same. And then, therefore, what's manifest? So then you even get a kind of confusion of if it's manifest, it's conditioned. If it's conditioned, it's Paticca Samuppada, and therefore it's sort of everything is relative. And you think, well, that's not much of a message, and I don't think that is what it's about. But there is quite a lot of confusion in the commentarial tradition about this. So I hope I will be able to deliver you a crystal clear, sharp, irrefutable version of it that will actually be helpful.
Sure.
I'm working on it. Yeah. So, is that everything? Good.
We want to thank you, actually, on behalf of all of us.
Hold on, just 1 second. Let me just take that off, because it would be a shame for people to miss what's happening online.
Oops. Oh.
Just so that those people can hear it.
All right. Well, just on behalf of all of us, I know we did thank Lama Shenpen yesterday, but I'd just like to extend our thank you for these wonderful teachings, and really to thank Lama Shenpen for being this rare and precious opportunity of a Western teacher bringing the Dharma into our language and our culture at this time, taking her place, creating a mandala that we can all now enter that will link us so strongly to the lineage. So thank you for your heroism, that's the right word, of just keeping going at it when it has been a lot of work. We're really, really grateful, and please stay with us and teach us for a long, long time.
Yes.
Well, thank you, all of you. I'm very proud of you all. I know how hard it is, and I know you're all, giving it your best shot. And I'm very grateful to you, because it meets my need for contribution. it's what I wanted to contribute, and you're there to receive it. So I'm delighted. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you. So we dedicate this punya to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings realize complete and perfect awakening. May the heart's awareness awaken in the unawakened. Where it has begun to stir, may it never fade, and may it awaken fully. Chanju Sangha Rinpoche Mache Panam Jejuji Jevan Yamba Mepada Kamne Kamdi Pawasho Chanju Sangha Rinpoche Mache Panam Jejuji Jevan Yamba Mepada Kamne Kamdi Pawasho Chanju Senmi Rinpoche Mache Panam Jejuji Jepan Yamba Mepada Kane Kondi Pawasho. All you wondrous beings I have a good or bad connection with. As soon as you have left this world that we are sharing, may your connection with the Sangha of awakening link you eternally to the power of the truth. May we live long and be free of illness, enjoy freedom, great resources and happiness. Next life may we meet in the pure realms. May we always practice Dharma and benefit these. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Let's say goodbye to everybody. Give some
Bye-bye.
nice round.
Bye.